What is up, and welcome back to another episode of So There's That. I am your hostess, doing the mostest, Kivanshi, and we are here with a brand new STARZ original series, The Couple Next Door, starring Alfred, Enoch. Okay, it's so crazy because a couple weeks ago people was on the timeline like, oh, I really wish like more was happening with his career, this and the third, da 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 da. But y'all, he is British television and movies and things exist. I'ma say this again: if you like someone, go seek them out where they are primarily residing. So that's with any type of international shows. I love watching international shows: Spanish, Brazilian, Portuguese. I've been watching a lot of Swiss movies lately. With the Swiss horror movies, top tier. I've been watching Japanese and Chinese and Vietnamese stories and stuff ever since I was a kid. So yeah, why do I say, go seek it out? One, support them. If you like them, don't just wait for them to show up on American television, because like I've always said, like, this is not the end all be all for success. Like, being on US television isn't the measurement of success, especially now with streaming services who still produce and partner with people in international in other countries, which is why you can get Netflix original series that are Brazilian or Portuguese, and why STARZ has a show that is, if you haven't guessed it, British. Like, they are across the pond. Okay, the setting is across the pond. So I like to be upfront and stuff like that. Some reviewers have said that it's quite Britishy. I don't know what that means, because the only British show that I like legitimately watched was Keeping Up Appearances, and that's so you gotta watch that show. It's, if I had to say like what's Britishy, it would be Keeping Up Appearances. Like, any type of thoughts, not necessarily like negative, but any stereotypes that you would think about like a British like posh or like faux posh lifestyle, that's what Keeping Up Appearances is. It's not like that to me. It's a suspense, it's thriller, it's drama, and I think the storyline of it all, for me at least, I honestly like forgot that they were even speaking in accents. But again, I watch a lot of shows with a lot of different accents, a lot of different languages, so that's kind of like the measurement of it all. But I will say, this show, it's 6 episodes in the show, and it is going to challenge how you view relationships and how you view communication within relationships, and definitely what it means to trust within your relationship. A lot of people think that people have this idea of what relationships and stuff should look like, and there's a lot of unspoken information in relationships. You're making an assumption of monogamy, or you're making an assumption of boundaries, and you never voice them, and then when something happens, it explodes. But what I love about this series, especially this opening episode, is we get to explore 2 couples who communicate their wants and their needs, no matter how conventional or unconventional it may seem to society. And I would definitely say that this first episode will absolutely open up your mind. If you're somebody who follows a sense of traditional relationship morality, but in the back of your mind you're like, what if? This is the show for you, especially if you're just curious about like, what does that look like? And how could you potentially apply it a little bit to your own life, without, violence and things of that nature. So before we dive into it, at first, so I did take a lot of notes, and I mean a lot, but I think I'm gonna just talk to y'all about this. I feel like I can I remember enough of it to give you like the skeletal framework, and then you can go and watch the show and fill in that skeleton with all the different organs in the skin. Because what I don't want to do with a show like this, especially with a first episode like this, it kind of reminds me of Earth Abide's first episode. It's like, if I tell you, then that's like everything on the plate. And that's not necessarily the full purpose of when I do my recaps. It's about being engaging, and it's not about giving you everything in it. It's about driving you to the source, and then bringing you back here and having a conversation. Because I like leaving out, you know, key things and stuff like that. But it's how it's similar to Earth Abides as far as layout goes. It's literally laying out like the plan, and then you gotta go through the rest of the episodes to be like, how is this unfolding? So obviously completely different concepts, but just as far as like the layout goes, if you saw Earth Abides, and it's also streaming in the UK, continue to watch it. The first episode was like framework, and then you immediately deep dove into like some chaotic mess. So that's how I would describe it. So like I said, it's on STARZ, and it premieres weekly on STARZ at 9/8 Central on STARZ. So it's episodic. Season 1, episode 1, the episode is 51 minutes. So again, choose your time wisely. The Logline: a young couple moves to an upscale neighborhood to start a family, but soon find themselves entangled in a complex web of desire and betrayal with their new neighbors. The genre is drama and thriller. They do have a subcategory of suspense. The writer for this episode was Allison. The director, oh my god, y'all, I forgot. I knew I was forgetting something. I was like, oh, I have all the information. So they have a lot of I don't want to say foreign. I feel like saying foreign is like disrespectful to other people's countries. Like, yeah, they just have a lot of people who are not from the United States who worked on the show. So the director is Dries Vos. The cinematographer is Laurent de Geyter. The original music, so the music in this is all original, and the title, like the theme song, is absolutely phenomenal. It's like rock soul. Yeah, it's rock soul. The voice is gritty. It like really pulls you in. The visuals of it all in the title card and just the theme opening is very beautiful to watch. Like, if you're somebody who's into that, don't skip the intro. Then also, what a lot of shows have been doing is they've been dropping hints and nuggets about each episode in the opening. So just be on the lookout for some of your favorite shows dropping hints and nuggets that you have to reference throughout the season. Okay. So the original music was done by Hans de Meyer. And the cast is Alfred Enoch, who plays Pete. Eleanor Tomlinson, who plays Evie, Pete's wife. Jessica de Gouw, who plays Becka. And Sam Heughan, who plays Danny, which is Becca's partner. Okay. First and foremost, we start off with a cold open. So if you don't know what a cold open is, a cold open is designed to be short, like 2 minutes or less, and it's supposed to present a scene in front of you that grabs your attention without giving away the plot of the episode. So in this cold open, you just see a shot in the woods of a cabin, and it's pretty far away. It's a nice aerial shot, angled down at a 45-degree angle, and you're kind of like looking through the trees. And then out of nowhere, you hear a gunshot, a piercing scream, and a redheaded woman is running through the forest. So then you have Alfred Enoch's character, who we find out the name is Pete. He's running behind her and he's calling out her name and he's saying, Evie, stop. So we get these names here. Who's chasing her? We see this other couple and they're chasing behind her, and you see Pete chasing behind them with a gun still in his hand. So he pulls up and then it just kind of like fades out and it fades back in, and you see this couple on their knees with Pete holding the gun over them, and he's like looking frantic. Evie is still running and looking frantic, and when he looks over to Evie, the guy on the ground takes this opportunity to try to wrestle the gun from his hand, and everything goes black and the gun goes off. So boom, that's the opening laid out for you. So we go into the episode and we have Evie and Pete. I specifically called out her red hair because they're just moving into the neighborhood, and Pete's like, this looking real Desperate Housewives, and I promise you it is. Like, the way the cul-de-sac and everything is laid out is like just like that. It's kind of creepy when a woman with like raven black hair comes from across the street, and she's like, hey y'all, what is going on? Welcome to the neighborhood. She hugs Evie. She gives her a kiss on the cheek. She's like, oh my God, how far along are you? And we find out, you know, she's pregnant. And this woman is just like, oh my God, I already know that we're gonna be best friends. And so Pete is just kind of like, hello, nice to meet you. And so she introduces herself as Becka, and she's just like, look, I have been itching for some people my age to move into this neighborhood. Everybody here is getting ready to retire or just already retired, and I just cannot take it. So Pete is trying to unpack the van and everything like that when he's struggling with the dishwasher, and so she calls Danny over, and we meet Danny, her partner, and she's like, you know, help him out. And Danny's kind of buff, whatever, body looking nice, body looking right, or whatever, and he helps bring everything into the house. So instantly they're kind of just developing like some bond-ish. It's kind of thrown on Pete and Evie, but Evie is kind of more accepting of this because, you know, she's pregnant. This is a new neighborhood. Why not be open to some people who seem nice, because I'm going to be needing a support system anyway. But Pete is just kind of like chill. And so while all four of them are just sharing a beer, obviously Evie has a Coke. It's mostly Evie and Becca's energy kind of driving this scenario. And so they leave, and Evie's like, okay, well, what do you think? And he was like, well, you know, she's, you know, seems okay, but he seems like a lot, and I'm not really sure if I'm vibing with that. Now, I was watching it and I was just like, well, what do you mean it was a lot? Danny literally sat there and acted like you. He was polite, but he wasn't like domineering anything. They just both let the women do stuff. So I was just kind of like, is there like a little bit of jealousy here with maybe what he looks like and stuff like that? And I will definitely say with this show, this ain't something you need to be on your phone. Like, let's bring the attention spans back to TV. But with the show, there's a lot of body language acting, there's a lot of facial acting, and if you're distracted, you're gonna miss some pivotal stuff. And so in this, you can just kind of tell that Pete's reaction, he might have a little bit of intuition, but for now it's kind of not based on anything except that you needed help getting your stuff out of the back of your van, and he did it by himself and you couldn't. So it's a little bit based in like some macho-ness, but Pete, seeming like the good guy he is, he was like, okay, that might be it, but guess what, he can come over here and lift all of this shit. Okay, I will absolutely be using him. And so you kind of see that it's not coming off as like some type of fragile like masculinity type thing. I think he was just genuinely taken aback, and they're just a forward couple anyway. So they're getting settled, life and everything is good, and we find out that Evie is a teacher. So she goes to school, she meets the kids. It seems like they're in kindergarten, and, you know, she's, you know, ask any questions that you want about me or whatever. And one of the little girls was like, and I swear it was an Irish accent or Scottish or something. It was crazy. And you'll hear a lot of different accents in this, even though it's based in the UK. So she's like, you know, do you have a baby and you'll tell me like my mommy? And she's like, yeah. And so the girl's like, you know, her baby sibling moves around a lot, and she just enjoys rubbing her mom's belly. And then the rest of the students, you know, does their introductions and stuff like that. So Then we get to see a little bit about what Pete does as well. So Pete works for, he's a reporter, and he's working at a company that seems to be letting go their people left and right, or at least the people are quitting. And I can imagine that this is just not one of those lucrative businesses unless you're just somebody who seeks like high profile stories. So he's talking to his coworker when their boss comes out, and he puts this chart and this case on his desk with somebody by the name of Robbie Spencer. And he was like, well, we're not going to be doing this. We need to be looking at, like, you know, hearts for holidays, like my movies for Christmas. But he was literally like, we don't need to be doing this. Okay, we don't even have the manning for this, and this just seemed like a lot, because what if this backfires on us? So let's go figure out, like, what animal was born at the zoo, or any other story that's basically like frou-frou. And so they just kind of leave it on the desk, even though they're both arguing back, like, this could actually be the case that gets us money and gets us traction and get you on the map. But their boss is just like, look, we need to just stay afloat, so do what I told you and things will be cool. Back at the school, the little girl who asked about the baby comes in from recess early, and she asks Evie if she can rub her tummy. So she puts her hands on her belly, and also I love that she asked, because grown people just be walking up on other grown pregnant adults and sticking their little hands out. I don't know your vibe, I don't know your energy, I don't know what spirits are following you. Do not touch me without my permission. So first and foremost, this girl has amazing parents, because she asked to touch her belly. And so she says yes, and she touches it, and she just has like a nice little squeeze with her little small hands. And she says, I don't feel anything. And Evie's like, oh, well, you know, sometimes the babies just rest so they don't move all the time. And then the girl leaves, and you could just see in her face that she's like, So she calls the doctor, and she's like, hey, you know, I just wanted to come in. The baby's been a little bit less active these days. Like, I just want to, you know, see what's up. She calls Pete, but he doesn't answer, so she shoots him off a text. And we go to the hospital, and the nurse comes in. I'm sorry, I'm like, if you're watching, I'm like wiping my eyes, and I could just feel my eyes getting juicy because of the lights. But yeah, nurse comes in, they're like, okay, cool. She put the gel on. She don't hear nothing. She goes to the other side, she don't hear nothing. And she's like, let me just go get somebody else. And Evie already knows, like, what's happening. Pete is still unable to be reached, and they're asking her, do you have anybody to take you home, or that's waiting on you, and stuff like that. So obviously she drove there, so she drives home, and we see her in her driveway with the door open. It's nighttime, like, and she just stuck, as one would be. And Becka was outside on the front porch doing something, and before she gets ready to walk into the house, she notices that Evie is it's an odd situation. So this is one of those times where I'm like, okay, she's not being intrusive, it's odd, right? So she goes up, and she's like, is everything okay? And Evie just breaks down, and she's like, you know, I lost the baby. So they go inside of the house, and she's just doing her best to be there. And that's when Pete finally walks in the house, and he's like, you know, I've gotten all your messages, I got your voicemail, like, what's going on? And she didn't even have to say anything, and he just, like, the realization just hits. What I love in this moment, when Danny finally comes home from work, and they're all over there, is while they have only known each other for like a couple of days, Danny and Becka, because they have their own child, I thought they handled the miscarriage in such a beautiful way. It wasn't like sometimes people think they're being comforting when in reality it's a little bit of like condescending, or they turn your loss about them. And I like that Becka and Danny basically like kept it about them, and acknowledge the gravity of that loss. Even Danny even saying, I can't even imagine what you're going through, but whatever you need, we're here. You need to talk, you need to do anything. And then surprisingly, Pete opens up to Danny. Remember, he said he didn't even vibe with him like that. And we find out that his sperm count is low, and so they had to do IVF treatments. The 2 previous IVF treatments didn't take, and this was the 3rd one. And this was the one that took. And he tells him, you know, she's been wanting to have kids ever since they were in uni. And that's when we find out that they've been together for 17 years. They're literally like grew up and went through so much loss together within their relationship. And so he's just feeling at this moment like he is somehow broken and he can't give her something that her heart desires, and Danny just absorbs it. He doesn't try to like macho man out of it. He really leans into this vulnerable moment with Pete. And in this moment, even though like I was like, y'all are get out of my business. In this moment, in the way that Becka and Danny are emotionally available for them, I genuinely was like, okay, I think I like them like a lot. Becka comes out. She lets them know that she put Evie in bed and left her like some water and like some crackers and stuff on the side just for if she woke up and could potentially eat something. And her and Danny end up going home. And so we're going to pause there. We're going to tell you a little bit about Danny. Just a little bit. So Danny he works, it's like a subset of police, but he drives a motorcycle and he delivers organs to hospitals, or he does like pickups and drop-offs if the ambulance that was dispatched is in traffic or it's going to take longer to get there. So the reason I'm telling you this now is because before all of the tragedy and stuff happened, Evie ended up seeing him going to work, and so she was just curious, like, you know, he's riding a motorcycle, he has all these different vests and stuff on, like, what does he do? And Pete ended up asking her like, oh, so like you into that or whatever? And she was like, maybe. And he was like, okay, well, don't forget how this baby got put up in you and what we've been doing these last 17 years. And they just kind of like, you get to see like a little bit of a relationship. But the reason I wanted to mention not only his job and her seeing it is because you get to see where she makes a comment about how kind of badass or kind of hot he looks in this gear, and you see some things kind of turning in her head. But then you also get Pete, who sees it, notices it, acknowledges it, and then they're pulled into their own world with each other based off of potential lust from their neighbor. Okay, so Danny does these jobs, does these drops and all this other stuff. And so again, it's like cop adjacent, but also like medic adjacent. And we see him in a scene with his coworker, and they made a bet on who could get like the most like bullseyes or whatever, because they're at a gun range. And Danny ended up losing the bet, and he was like, look, I'm gonna have to get you next time because, you know, money is a little tight these days. And so his friend was like, oh, I don't know how down bad you are, but if you want to make a little money on the side, there are some things that we can do. And then he's like, look, I'm not about to be getting into nothing illegal with you. Like, bro, chill. And his friend was like, look, calm down. All we got to do is drive. We don't have to do nothing. We literally getting paid to drive. In fact, there's a job coming up soon. We just got to escort somebody, and it's literally 5,000 pounds per person. Like, I can bring you in on this, and we both getting paid just to do nothing. So he was like, you know, just think about it. Like, just think about it. Okay. So we go through these cycles of grief, right? And Pete and Evie are seeing kids everywhere. And I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna just let y'all know, if you've experienced a miscarriage, and this man or woman, because in a relationship both partners lose a child. If you experience a miscarriage, this scene will absolutely like eat at you. I've been there, and I remember after mine it was babies everywhere, and I just like could not. I didn't even know that many kids even existed in the world. Or like if I'm watching a show or a movie, I didn't even realize how common childbirth was in a lot of the stuff that I watched. So it was really tough for them for like a couple of months. And while it was very difficult, we watched them be a little bit, you could kind of tell that they were unsure on how to approach one another in it. They didn't blame each other or fight about it. So even in their silence, they still cocooned themselves in each other's grief. And I like that they grieved together in this way. So you're learning a lot about both couples' relationships and how strong they actually are. Okay. So in one of the scenes, we get, it's like it's a dual thing. So Danny is at home from being at the gun range, and he just watches TV chilling. And Becca's sitting on the couch, and she's like, I'm bored. And bored equals horny, okay? Y'all know when a woman says she bored. And you're watching a game, baby. Bored, translated. And so she's like, you remember that couple that we met on this vacation? And he was like, okay, I'm seeing where you're going. She was like, we should look them up. So Pete is finally going into the baby's room, and he's like just compiling everything together when he sees a taxi pull up outside of the neighbor's house. Now, I want to park just a little bit. Pete and Evie are nosy as fuck. Like, why are y'all constantly looking out your fucking window? So they're nosy as hell. And there's a couple that gets out of the car. They go into the house, and it seems like, I don't know, they're just having a party, whatever. Like, it is what it is. But as a couple walks through the door, they swap and go to each other's partner. So the woman goes to Danny, and then the man goes to Becka. And you can see through their window that they all start like making out right there in the living room. Everybody got their champagne flutes and everything like that. And Pete's face is one of, I would say, disturbed curiosity. And the only reason I would say disturbed, it goes back to what I said at the beginning. If you're somebody who feels like you want to follow this traditional relationship sense of morality, but deep down you've always thought, what if I had a third? Or what if I had multiples? What if I was not married and just had all these other things? I felt like that was what was on Pete's face, where it was just kind of like, oh, that's strange, but also I'm still watching because I'm curious. So I didn't get a sense of judgment, but again, disturbed curiosity. Something maybe within himself kind of ignited, right? So again, you got to be watching the show in order to see these moments play out. Okay. There is a moment where Pete is like, okay, look, your mom and your daddy asked us to come over. And Evie's kind of given like a little bit of reluctance. And she's like, well, I'd rather just stay here until we go to the barbecue that Becca and Danny invited us to. He was like, look, it might be good to just see your mom. Like, she is a woman. Everybody needs their mama. Like, you know, it don't have to be long. It could be brief or whatever. So we get to this scene where it's like, I don't even know what type of worshiping this is. It gave church, cult, and witchcraft and wizardry with all of this mess. It was a lot. It was a lot. Okay. And then we realized that that's Evie's dad. So he's a pastor. He has like a little church or whatever. And they go over for dinner. So they're sitting at the table, and I think the mom ends up bringing it up, like, you know, we're sorry, you know, for your loss or whatever. And the dad kind of gives some sort of answer that was kind of like dismissive and judgy. And Evie said, no mas. No mas. You can't possibly feel bad because you think that this was God's will and our baby was an abomination anyway, just because we did IVF, and that we didn't consume a baby naturally. And he's like, well, look, God has said that a man lay with a woman, so I'm not going to apologize for the way that nature is intended to be. And the mom tries to interject, and she's like, sweetie, well, it may be God. And Evie's like, girl, if this God is the one that says that it is his will for me to lose my child after all the stuff that we've been through, then this ain't no God of mine, and it damn sure ain't no God that I'm gonna serve. And she told Pete, actually no, it was Pete who said, let's go. Okay, get your wife right on up out of there. I love Pete as a husband. And Evie says, you know what, before I leave, I'm gonna just tell y'all right now, not once in my life growing up with y'all did I ever feel welcome or comfortable in this home. Okay, not just me, but my sister too. And the sister looked like she was ready to crawl into the floorboards because she's like, why am I in it? And her husband sitting there like kind of looking at the sister and just looking down. But it seems like at this juncture, this is the end of this relationship, and everything just boiled over. And also something that they don't necessarily speak to, but I think that with the other IVF trials, which makes sense, that she never said anything to her family about losing those babies and the multiple miscarriages that she had before, that was in like the first trimester. And she decided to say something to her family because she had made it to 20 weeks. So she's thinking like she's in the clear. So with all the stuff that we know that they went through, it seemed rather them saying what they said at this little Sunday dinner or whatever to her made me think if this was the first baby that they even knew about. So they didn't even know the magnitude of the loss that they actually have endured throughout the entirety of their own relationship. So they did. Okay, so we'll probably never see them again. So here we are at the barbecue, and Evie says, I'm getting fucked up. Okay, like things are happening. Evie is in like she's in this cute little forest green outfit, really complimentary to her skin tone and her hair. And Becka is in this red slinky outfit. It just seems overdressed for a backyard barbecue, but also like not. I can't describe it. But what I really do love is the color of the actress's skin and their hair and the way that they're dressed. So Becka has like black hair, pale skin, striking eyes. Think The Craft. Her. Okay, that is exactly what it is. And so what I think is happening with the costuming and the hair coloring choices and stuff like that, I think they represent kind of like the emotional power buttons of each other's relationships, where, oh, how do I describe it? I like their personalities within the relationship, and you could tell that the relationship moves based on the mood and the energy of the women in their lives. And you see that in the way that they are dressed and styled. And then in this moment in the backyard, Evie just kind of absorbing the fact that she's not pregnant anymore and just vocalizing things that she wants to do and just not wanting to be held back anymore. So Becka is fully on board, like, let's get you fucked up, girl. I've been waiting all night. And while they're going to get drunk, and wine drunk is crazy, Danny looking around like, yes, thought they would never leave, bro, let's light it up. And they're in the backyard and they smoking weed together, and you finally get to like see them just bonding in individual ways and as a couple. So they're just genuinely getting to know each other. So the ladies walk back out and Evie is like, what? Oh my God, I haven't seen this side of you in such a long time. Like, she's being just super flirty and just super touchy with everybody, but you could just tell like something in her is like reigniting for Pete as well. And he looks a little bit concerned, but he's gonna absorb it and he's gonna follow her lead. So everybody's having a good time. And so she's like, oh my God, I saw you going to work the other day on your bike. I have never even like seen one this close. Like, it's weird that what you do and like with your job and everything like that. Let's go see. So they go across the street to the garage, and I mean, across the street, they're already at their house. They go to the garage and they're looking at it, and she's always had like some interest in it, but you know, she's always been scared and she's never been on one. And so she asked Danny, like, you know what, fuck it. Live free, YOLO. Can you take me for a ride around the block? And so Danny's looking at Pete like, you good, you cool? And he was like, I mean, she's running this show right now. So she gets on the bike and Pete and Becka go back inside of the house or whatever, and they're just chopping it up. So he takes her for a ride around the block and he's like, okay, here's your helmet, hold on to me, all this other stuff. And for the first time in months, she's giggling, she's laughing, and she's crying. So this is like some type of cathartic release, an emotional release of anything that she was holding on to, and just allowing herself the freedom. Mind you, she just cussed out her parents. So now she's doing this thing. And while it may seem reckless, it's just a freedom of her taking control over her life and maybe accepting that she can't control every outcome that's meant to happen. So she's begging him to drive faster, and she's letting her hands go, and she's doing all this other stuff. And then she has her hands on him, and there's just these subtle movements of her feeling across like his abdomen and his chest. And he kind of like cuts his eyes and he just looks back forward. And again, it was just around the block. He comes back, he parks. Pete and Becka meet them on the front porch. And Evie gets off and she goes right up to Pete. And it's time. Like, it's time. So they go back home and Pete is in the kitchen, and she must have just been in the bedroom just kind of like getting ready and settling down for the night, and he's just kind of thinking and just having a moment to himself. Baby girl came around that corner with them wine drunk eyes, okay, with that dress still on. And whatever Pete thought he was doing, he is doing no more. And he asked her, are you sure? You know, we want to get consent. We want to make sure that everything is good. And he wasn't even just asking her about like even the drunkenness of it all, but the emotional part. And you could tell in this moment, he's like probing for the emotional portion of it all. She has not wanted to be physical since they lost the baby. And so she says, she's sure. And they knock over and break everything in that kitchen, okay? So he's cleaning up and she come out the room, she got on some pajamas, and he's like, are you sure you're okay? And she was like, you know, I'm good. I feel good. I haven't felt this vibrant and this alive in a little bit. And you know, I love you, and the fact that you still like give me goosebumps, like I love that. And so she's like, you know what? You already cleaned up everything. You go and get freshened up. I'll take the trash out. So at this point, it's raining outside, and she goes out to take out the trash. Danny goes out to take out the trash, and she sees him. He sees her. And all of a sudden, her chest and her breathing and his breathing and them eyes is locked from across the street. And it's just like, everything we've been seeing throughout this entire episode, especially from her, but from this motorcycle ride, it's like confirmed in this look, y'all. So there's that. Season 1, episode 1, The Couple Next Door. I just want to say, don't jump me in the comments when you realize what I left out of my recap. Left it out on purpose. There were so many nuggets, so many bombs, and so many storylines connected in different ways outside of this relationship. But I really wanted to focus on their relationship in this recap because, again, it's laying the plot of how can the betrayal of it all and the coupling of it all that we're leading to in the series based on the logline. So I really wanted to talk about the dynamics in which the chemistry and the tension and the desire kind of build up. And it appears that while it was kind of bubbling, the catalyst to potentially exploring this, at least between Danny and Evie, is the connection and the closeness that was brought with the loss of their child. So it appears that the nucleus that's gonna draw them together could be how the other couple was there for them when they suffered a very significant loss at the very beginning of a potential friendship with Danny and Becka. Speaking of chemistry, the chemistry with with these four main actors, just as actors, whoever selected them on that chemistry read, shout out to y'all, casting director, the writer, whomever. It is so flirty, their intimacy and their intimate moments in the times that you don't see them having sex, and you really only see one sex scene in this episode, and it's between Pete and Evie, and it's the one that I described. But just the stolen glances, the touches, the giggliness of it all, and to see that these couples have been together for quite some time within their own relationship, and to still see this childish energy, this crush, something sweet and something innocent still within their relationships. And then you also get to see confidence within their relationships, and based on Becka and Danny inviting that other couple over, you can already answer the question. They are a they're not a polyamorous couple, they're swingers. Because for right now it doesn't seem like there's a third in the relationship, but the trust and implicitness in the fact that it's two people making the decision, and not that you see one person who forced the other person into a specific lifestyle. It really looks like two people who communicated their wants and their needs, and they got together, they have a son together, they have respectful boundaries. I think at one point in the episode, Becka even asked Danny, what do you think about the neighbors? And what she was doing as she asked, you can just tell, like, she's thinking like, could we have something more local? And they're just having a conversation about it. And it's not anybody going behind somebody's back about certain things. Even as we got to the end of the episode, we're seeing that there's this heat between them. But will they go back to their partners and say, hey, I think I want to try something with the neighbors? You never know. What I look forward to in this series is the unraveling of it all. There's a character that I did not mention who I think is going to be a very serious problem within the friendship between both of the couples. He is a nasty character, but as many times as he appeared in this episode, I have a feeling that he is going to be extremely important, but I didn't want this recap to be about that part of it, because I think that's going to show up later in other episodes, and I can always just tell y'all previously on The Couple Next Door. Is there anything else that I look forward to with the season? I mean, honestly, fantastic actors, fantastic chemistry. Visually, everything looks really nice. Like I said, the music throughout all of this is amazing. And the whole first episode, just kind of like the pacing just starts you off as something very mundane, very housewives, and it leaves you with something still housewives, but like, y'all know how Desperate Housewives would just end on, like, each episode would end on some wild ass cliffhanger that just seemed out of place for the daytime activity. It's like that. So it gives you the light and the dark side of this type of community, especially a community that's so tight knit, where neighbors are likely to know more about your business than you would like for them to have. So I'm definitely excited about the light and the dark of exploring this. And again, because it's on STARZ, I expect violence, like some good violence. Yeah, I was quite surprised at this episode. I wasn't sure if I was gonna like it in the first like 15 minutes, I'm gonna just be real, but I was rather stunned. All I could tell y'all is do not blink. Watch it. There are things that I did not say that you need to look at the screen to see, because if you just look away, you're just gonna hear music and no dialogue. So watch this show. Highly recommend it. I will be back here for the next 5 weeks every Sunday reviewing this show until I hop on to another show. Y'all already know the drill. And with that, we're gonna end this episode. As always, like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave comments in the comments box below. Again, for all of your audio only friends, go ahead and share that Spotify and Apple Podcast link. Again, you can always find me on So There's That Podcast on Instagram. Just again, treat it like entertainment news. That's literally what I'm there doing, and I'm talking about all things that's coming up that I don't even talk about on this podcast. And you can always find me popping my shit on Twitter at Kivanshi, as well as at Kivanshi on Blue Sky. And with that, I'm gonna catch y'all in the next one.